We're excited to bring you this episode of The Best of John and April Live.
Yes, and this one has been requested multiple times.
And you'll see why. It's with Sheila Gregroir. It's about how Christian women can enjoy sex more. And actually, she kind of talks about how we can enjoy sex more as a couple because we prioritize the woman in the bedroom.
Wow. I mean, this was mind-blowing when we first heard about this.
Yeah,
and
it was.
So you got to get the book, The Great Rescue.
Great Sex Rescue.
The Great Sex Rescue.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, it's really, really good.
Yes.
She talks about the obligation sex message, which is a totally new concept to us at the time. We know it now. So this is going to be really good.
Yeah. So stay tuned.
Come on, Tommy's in trouble. Okay.
All right.
So let's just go to our guest.
Yes. Let's get
So
this party
we have
started.
the author of the book, The Great Sex Rescue. I guess maybe she should be considered co-author.
You need to be using. Finally, you get to use that. You have been trying.
Well,
to
is
use,
it loud enough though?
don't know.
I
Let's
probably
see.
need
You
to turn
need
up
to
the
turn it
sound
up.
effects.
Okay. So we have.
So we have the author of The Great Sex Rescue, and I've got some claps here. Her name is Sheila Wray Gregroir. Sorry, that's a little bit of a tongue twister, a little bit. And tonight we're talking about why is marriage so unfulfilling to so many Christian people. And we're excited to have you. Hello, Sheila,
Yes,
and thank you for
hi.
being here tonight.
Well, thank you. And oh my gosh, you were making me all teary with all your superlatives. So that's awesome.
Listen.
So,
Yes.
so we have more than that, but we don't want to be too gushy. You know what I'm saying?
I can't let it all out.
Exactly, because
because
it would be bad.
Yes.
You'd be embarrassed off of the
exactly.
show. So before we start, April wanted to ask you before we started the show tonight, and we probably should have asked, but
I don't even know what you're talking about.
you said something. You said something about why you decided to come on our show tonight. I don't know if it's okay for you to talk about that. Like reasons, like something that happened that's
are
a
you
problem
okay with
for
sharing
you with other things.
Well, basically, what makes The Great Sex Rescue different from a lot of other sex books is that our main purpose in the book is saying, hey guys, this is where the evangelical world has totally messed up in our sex teaching. And we identified books and authors who actually taught stuff which we know is harmful. And so we're calling names. Like we are taking people up like on the carpet. Like we're naming names. And so a lot of Christian publishing places and media hasn't wanted to feature us because we're actually naming names. And so the way this book is selling really well, like it's the top selling sex book right now in Christianity, but it's all by word of mouth. It's all by word of mouth because the big media outlets won't cover it. So
let me just say this, because I was commenting to April earlier about this very thing. I feel personally, as I was reading the book, that the way that you name names is done well. You say several times, in the book, that you assume that the intentions were good. You even say they may have been trying to help couples to have more sex or whatever, but this is why it's damaging. And I appreciated that. I didn't feel as though you were trying to compare as if to say, don't buy theirs, mine is better, or anything like that. I felt like you were basically saying, here are the things that are damaging. Here's what we found from the surveys. Here's what women are telling us is a problem. Yeah. And as I'm hearing these things, I'm like, wow, I never would have connected that to the problems that people are having within their marriages. So thank you for that. And thank you for the way that you guys did it. I felt like it was tasteful. I didn't feel like, I guess my feelings would be hurt if it was me, but
Yeah. And I understand that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So tell us about yourself. We want our audience to know who you are a little bit. So if you could tell us, where you're from and how long you've been doing this. We've really just introduced to you for the first time within the past few weeks.
Right.
So we'd love to hear, your background a little bit.
Okay, so I'm Canadian. So if people think that I sound funny, it's because I do. So how's it going, eh? Yeah. And in 2008, I started mommy blogging. So I was talking about parenting and organizing and housework and marriage. And I found that the more I talked about sex, the more my traffic grew on my blog, which is toLoveHonorAndVacuum.com. And so I slowly started talking about sex more and more until that kind of took over. And then in 2012, my first sex book was out, The Good Girl's Guide to Great Sex. I have since completely rewritten it, and it's coming out next month, the new version.
Wow.
But for 10th anniversary. But The Good Girl's Guide to Great Sex was out. I did 31 Days to Great Sex. I was creating an orgasm course and a libido course. And my blog was huge, still is. And yet the one thing I had never done was read any other Christian sex or marriage books because I didn't want to plagiarize, And so I'm thinking, I love Jesus. They love Jesus. We're all teaching the same thing. So my husband and I were teaching at marriage conferences. We would hold up other people's books, even Love and Respect, and we would tell people to go buy it because it was great. And then one January afternoon, 2019, I had a migraine. I didn't feel like working. I was on Twitter and people were debating whether they needed love or respect. And they were referring to Emerson Eggerich's book, Love and Respect. It's the most widely used marriage study in North American churches. And I thought to myself, I have that book, but I've never read it. I can procrastinate by going and reading that book. And so I got it and I turned to the sex chapter and I read, if your husband is typical, he has a need that you don't have.
And you were like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Wow.
I was like, mm-hmm. And he went on to say that the husband's need is for physical release through sexual intimacy.
Wow.
So nothing about real intimacy, nothing about emotional connection. It's just physical release. And he went on to say that if you don't give him the physical release, you need to minister to him sexually as unto Jesus Christ. And if you don't, he may have an affair. And you need to understand his struggle with lust. And that was the whole message of his sex chapter. There was nothing about the fact that a woman could feel pleasure too. There was nothing about the fact that he should be taking care of her. And I thought, holy cow, is this what we're doing? And so at the time, my daughter, Rebecca, was working on the blog. She has a degree in psychology and psychometrics. We also had another person working on my blog who with a degree in epidemiology and stats. She was home with her baby and just a friend of the family. And we just thought, why don't we figure this out? Let's just do the biggest survey that's ever been done of Christian women, and let's find out if Christian books are hurting sex and marriage. So we surveyed 20,000
Wow.
20,000 women, 130 questions at least. Some women had more, depending on how many times they were married. And we asked them about their marital satisfaction, and then their sexual satisfaction. And then we presented them with a bunch of different beliefs and messages that were given in the church. And we said, do you believe them? And from that, we could measure people who did believe it against people who didn't believe it and see if it changed marriage and sex outcomes.
So that's how you did
Wow,
that. So
wow,
in the
wow.
book, you do mention, I don't remember you explaining a lot, so I'd love to ask you that question. Why only women? What was the reason why you didn't also survey men? And I do remember you giving an answer, but I'd like you to,
Yeah. So we have surveyed men since. So the men's data is actually coming out next month in The Good Guy's Guide to Great Sex. Right.
That's by your husband,
Wow.
right?
So, yeah, me and my husband
Oh,
together.
the two of you together.
Okay,
Yes.
wow.
Yeah.
So we have, but we really wanted to survey women, and there were two reasons. One is the orgasm gap.
Yes.
Yes.
We wanted to talk
So-
about
Yes,
that.
we do.
Yes. Okay.
Go ahead and
So
expound.
Yeah, exactly.
95% of men almost always reach orgasm in a sexual encounter,
Right.
compared to only 48% of Christian women. So that's a 47-point gap.
Yeah.
And we wanted to get to the bottom of why that gap exists, because we figured, if we can figure that out, because most couples, the biggest issue is frequency, right? Like, how do we get her to want it more? And we figured if we could figure out the orgasm piece, we could probably figure out the frequency piece. That would help a lot of couples.
Yeah.
Right.
So that was one reason. The second reason was actually more of a personal thing, which is when I first got married, I had a terrible case of vaginismus, which is a sexual pain disorder. No one knows it. Okay, everybody who's watching this,
Exactly.
They don't know what vaginismus is.
Yes.
I want you to say the word vaginismus. Okay,
Vaginismus.
Yeah, there you go. Vaginismus. It is the
Now,
sexual
I
pain
think this is the
disorder.
part that people should actually share on. Like, share this right now.
Yes,
We're
we want you
talking
to
about
stop
something
and
you've never heard
share.
of.
Yes.
Vaginismus is a big deal.
Yes.
It actually really is. And what happens is the muscles of the vaginal wall contract and become tight, which makes penetration really painful, if not impossible. And I had this, and nobody had a name for it. And I wasn't treated very, a whole bunch of stuff happened. We don't need to go into all that right now. But we have known for about 60 years in the gynecological journals that religious conservative women, and specifically Christian women, suffer at least twice the rate of the general population.
Really?
Wow. Are you kidding me?
Wow.
And so we wanted to know why.
Why that is. That's got to be related.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so we wanted to have a big enough survey.
Is this
that
how it's
we
spelled, by
could-
the way?
No. No.
That's right. He said
I wonder if
veganismus.
I wonder if I can type it out. It's VAGINISMUS.
That's it. Okay.
We wanted to know if we could figure out some of the reasons. And what we found is 22.6% of women have experienced vaginismus of evangelical women. So that's a lot. That's
a lot.
more than 1 in 5. And
Wow.
7% to the point that sex is impossible. Penetration is impossible.
And so
Wow.
there had to be a connection. Now, there was another word that I never heard of until I read the book.
There were several of them.
There were 3 that you mentioned. One was vaginismus. Another one, I can't remember the name of it now. It had something to do with pain in sex that wasn't just about muscle contraction.
Yeah, so dyspareunia is the medical
Dyspareunia.
term. Dyspareunia is the medical term for any kind of pain.
Okay.
So vaginismus is dyspareunia, but so is vulvodynia, is another kind
the other
of sexual pain that women can have. lichen sclerosis can also cause problems. There's a lot of different disorders, but vaginismus is the most common. Almost. Just put a US at the end, Tiffany. You're
MUS,
almost there.
not IS.
Yes,
Okay, all right.
there you go.
Here is Ginger saying vaginismus is the body's automatic reaction to the fear of some or all types of vaginal penetration.
Yes and no.
Okay.
Yes, that is what we found. That is a large part of it, but there are also some physical reasons for it.
Okay.
So it's very complicated, but our pelvic floor, those muscles. I did ballet for years, and I didn't breathe properly because of that. And a lot of gymnasts, ballerinas can run into vaginismus issues just because of the way you hold your pelvic floor. Like if you're constantly holding your stomach in, then your pelvic floor may never be relaxed. So there's a lot of different reasons.
Okay.
But we did find that certain beliefs are highly correlated with vaginismus. And
Wow.
yeah, and we actually presented at the American Physiotherapy Convention in early February about our findings. So the pelvic floor physiotherapists really love our work. So that's exciting. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
That is exciting.
So we just want to know, like, what things did you observe within Christian marriages made you see that this was, you just said that a lot of what we've been taught, is why some of that has happened. Can you just expound on that? Like, what are some of the things that have been taught that you feel are keeping or causing this kind of thing to happen within relationships?
Yeah. So we identified 4 big teachings that really affect women's marital and sexual satisfaction. And there's more, but we talk about 4 big ones in the Great Sex Rescue. And if I were to say, like in Lord of the Rings terminology, you know how there's like one ring to rule them all,
Yes.
like the one belief that kind of unites all of them is Emerson Eggerich's idea that if your husband is typical, he has a need you don't have. So that would be the idea that sex is for men, and for women it's just kind of like, he even says, men need the physical release, women need emotional release. So all women really need is the emotional connection. Wow. I don't know what emotional release is. Like, I don't even know what it is. I don't know if have you seen the movie The Proposal? Have you ever seen The Proposal?
Yes, long time ago.
Okay. You know that scene with Sandra Bullock and the late Betty White? She just died. But when they're in the forest, they're in the forest and she's doing like to the window, to the wall. Like I always
don't even remember that. We need to watch that again. Well, You're thinking that's what emotional release is?
Emotional release. I do. That's what I picture is Betty White and Sandra Bullock. But but that's the idea that the husband needs the physical, and she's fine just with connection. She doesn't need anything else. And so that's the one idea that rules them all. But here's the 4 beliefs. And maybe we'll touch on all of them. I don't know. But the one big one, the one that's the most implicated in vaginismus, is the idea that a woman is obligated to give her husband sex when he wants it.
Mm-hmm.
Duty sex.
Duty sex, yeah. And we call that the obligation sex message or duty sex, same thing. And the problem with that is that it tells a woman you don't matter. You don't matter. Because if he has the right to sex, no matter what she is experiencing, then sex is not a knowing, it's an owing. Instead of it being 2 people being intimately connected, it's one person's needs and humanity being erased because this person matters more.
Wow.
And when women believe the obligation sex message, their chance of experiencing vaginismus increases to almost the same statistical effect as if she had been abused.
Wow.
Because our bodies interpret the obligation sex message as trauma.
Wow.
And
as trauma.
So then if the obligation sex message is impacting something like vaginismus, even if it doesn't give someone vaginismus, it most certainly will probably keep them from having an orgasm.
Yes. So it also lowers orgasm rates. It lowers marital satisfaction. It lowers arousal rate. It just is bad. It's bad all
Yeah.
the way around.
Wow.
Wow.
And yet it's widely taught. Like for instance, Kevin Lehman in his book Sheet Music tells women, if you're not feeling well, or if you're bleeding heavily, or if you're postpartum, so you can't have sex, you can give him a hand job or oral sex. So if he's ready to climb the walls. So he's telling a woman who's postpartum that
Wow.
what she needs to worry about is him.
Wow.
Okay. Like that's a problem. And so many of our books take the 1 Corinthians 7, 3-5 verses, which are the famous do not deprive verses, and we
Yes.
miss the entire point of those
Yes.
verses.
We do.
Yes.
So real quick, can I just ask a question that wasn't on the list about that 1 Corinthians 3-5 thing? I was thinking about this.
Yes.
I was listening to the book while I was driving. One of the key verses in 1 Corinthians 3-5 is the one about do not deprive each other, right? But in the same sentence, it says, do not deprive each other except by mutual consent and for a time. I think the mutual consent thing is super important. And I think the most impactful aspect of 1 Corinthians 7-5 is the mutual consent thing.
Right.
And I think that's the part we
That's
miss.
why we don't
We interpret that. We miss that altogether, and we say, oh, this means you owe it to the other person. You have to do it. No, that's not what 1 Corinthians 7-5 is about.
Right.
It can't be. It's introducing this idea of it's about both of us. Mutual consent, which, by the way, it should be about mutual enjoyment, too.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
We assume.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I really. Oh, go ahead.
No, I also want to say the do not deprive verses only, what we need to ask is something quite fundamental, which is what is it that we're not supposed to deprive each other of?
Right.
And this gets into the definition of sex, because this is where we go off track right from the very beginning.
Yeah.
We do.
You know, because if I were to say to you guys, did you have sex last night? Okay, which I'm not going to ask. Please do not answer. That's creepy. I'm not. Okay.
We don't mind
I will
answering.
talk about menstrual cups if you want. But anyway.
That's the end of the show. We'll talk about menstrual cups.
But if I were to ask you that, what you think I'm asking is something about intercourse, right? Penis and vagina move around to the climax.
Right.
And that's what we think sex is. But the problem with that definition is she could be lying there making a grocery list in her head. She could be in emotional turmoil. She could even be being coerced. And
right.
it would still count as having sex.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's not what the Bible
That's
says.
true.
No.
That's true.
You know, the Bible presents sex as a knowing.
Yes.
In Genesis 4, verse 1. Adam
Yes.
knew
Yes.
his wife Eve. It's an intimate connection.
Yes.
It presents sex as something which is pleasurable for both, from Song of Solomon. She is having a good time too.
Oh, she
Right.
is. She's enjoying herself.
Exactly what you said. 1 Corinthians 7, it presents it as something mutual. So we have this picture of a mutual, intimate, pleasurable experience. And that means one-sided intercourse. If we're telling her, you need to give him oral sex even when you don't want to, she's already being deprived, and those verses
Already.
don't even apply.
That's right.
Wow.
Immediately.
It's not mutual, intimate, and pleasurable for both. And I'm not saying you can't have a quickie. That's not what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that the relationship itself should be
Yes.
mutual, intimate, pleasurable for both.
Man.
So I really want you to talk about the teaching within the church. I know you talked about this, and this was actually new for me. Like, I really was like, whoa, I've never heard this.
It's because her
But-
pastor is her
Her
husband,
husband's-
and he doesn't teach that. So
No, but
anyway.
growing up, babe, you know, I did not know that there was basically, well, I guess it was underlined. I guess it was kind of
You think it was there, but it wasn't
but it
explicit.
wasn't explicit.
Yeah.
But the idea that you're teaching your girls that they are the reason why men lust.
Right.
Like, it's your fault. You
and,
know, when
and that at an early age, as teenagers, they're saddled with the responsibility
yes.
of grown men's lust.
Yes. Please talk about that and share with our which guys we want you to share. I'm going to say it again. Because
Share this right now.
Go ahead and share this because to me this is a very big part this is huge.
Yeah.
I believe it's a very big part as to why we think the way we do in a lot of other areas when it comes to sex. So could you please kind of talk about how that came about within our church?
Yeah. So basically, the teaching goes like this: all men struggle with lust. It's every man's battle, right? And God made men to be visual in a way that women will never understand. And so men are always battling their nature, and it causes lust. It's responsible for lust. And there's a whole book series written about this called Every Man's Battle. It sold 4 million copies. And it said things like, we find this reason for sexual sin among men. We got there naturally simply by being male. And then in another book, it said, in the same series, in Every Heart Restored, they said, men just don't naturally have that Christian view of sex.
Whoa.
So they're saying God made men to sin. God made men to not be able to handle this. And if you think about it, if you think that all men lust all the time, and that this is something men have very little control over, then the only answer for it, the only solution is women. So if men can't help it, it is now put on women. And the way that women fight this battle is either by completely covering up or by having more sex with your husband so that he's satiated and he doesn't want anything else. And so the responsibility for men's lust is put on women because we portray lust as something that men can't handle. Now, I think, and someone's saying, yeah, that makes us sexual objects. Exactly, because what it's doing is it is saying that male sexuality and the objectification of women are one and the same thing.
And that is biblical.
Wow.
Like, you know what I'm saying? You'll find this in the Bible. Like, what?
Right.
Yeah, no. And that is not ever the way that Jesus approached women.
No.
That is not ever the way that Jesus said men were made. And yet this is what is constantly taught. And in the book, Every Man's Battle, it actually says, when your husband is quitting lust and porn, so when he's quitting cold turkey, be like a merciful vial of methadone for him.
Yeah, the methadone chapter was good.
It calls women the methadone for their husband's sex addictions.
So can I pause you? Can I pause you and just say what I learned during this book is how dehumanizing we can be, and as a church, and it's like, how have we not realized that we have literally been using the Bible? Now, let me just say, our audience, as you can, April and I are Black. Our audience is mostly Black. We have been the recipient of the Bible dehumanizing people. So we know how that feels.
Right.
We know how that feels.
Exactly.
And yet, we do it all the time to women as well. But what the book opened my eyes to was, wow, that's super dehumanizing.
Yeah.
Why would we do that?
Yeah.
And then how do we expect our wives to actually be able to climax when they don't feel like a human when we're making love to them, or I guess just having sex with them?
Yeah. Wow.
But I think I also feel really, really sorry for for 11, 12, 13-year-old boys.
Yeah.
Because I think the message we are giving to boys is so toxic and shaming and awful.
Yes.
Because we're telling boys, basically, if you ever have a sexual thought, you're lusting.
Yes.
And this is the problem, is that we have missed the whole definition of lust. Because Jesus said, whoever looks at a woman with lust has committed adultery. So let's think about that. That's a deliberate action, looking, paired with a deliberate mindset with lust. So he doesn't say whoever looks at a woman. He doesn't say whoever notices a woman has cleavage.
Right.
He doesn't say whoever sees a woman's figure and has a biological reaction to that. He doesn't say whoever finds a woman attractive is lusting. He says whoever looks with lust. And so seeing is not lusting. Noticing is not lusting. And I find this so interesting because we can joke about how hot a guy is.
Yes, we can.
It's
Yes,
true.
we can.
And nobody thinks we're lusting.
That's
But
true.
Men can't do that because
Right.
that's
Wow.
thought, so we're allowed to notice that a guy is
Yeah.
hot or, and no one thinks that's lusting.
It's true.
Now,
That
I mean,
is so
I
true.
also do not believe that we should objectify men. So
Right,
I'm
of
not
course.
trying to
Right.
promote that.
No.
I'm just saying there's a real
Yeah.
misunderstanding
There
about this. And
is.
I think a lot of guys, and here, do you want to have some previews from a men's survey from this?
Please.
one? Do you want
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Make you big. Yeah.
Yes.
Give us a preview.
Yes.
Okay. So here's what's in the Good Guy's Guide to Great Sex. So we asked men, okay? We said, hey, do you have a daily struggle with lust, which is what these books say. And 75% of men said yes. Okay. So not 100% already.
Okay.
It's not 100. Not every man. It's 75%. But then what we did was we presented them with a whole bunch of different scenarios that they could come across in their daily life. And in each scenario, we gave them a bunch of options, some of which would have been lustful and some of which would have not. And we
Okay.
asked what they would choose. And of those 75%, almost half of them would never lust in any of the scenarios that we gave and do not watch porn.
Wow.
Wow.
So they think that they are lusting
Because somebody told them they are.
because
Wow.
probably just because they're noticing that women are pretty and attractive.
Exactly.
Wow.
And so we're doing a lot
Oh,
of we're causing a
wow.
lot of harm to men as well with the way that we talk about this.
So
That's
one of the
very
things one of the things I
sad.
love about what feels like your mission in the book is to try to maybe grow some new, what are those things called?
Dendrites?
Dendrites? Is that
Yeah.
what they are? Maybe some
In
new
your brain?
dendrites in your
Dendrites?
brain or
Yeah.
something like that? Like we can
Yeah.
connect this stuff to other things. I think it opens our minds to a whole new way of thinking. I'm excited about the men's survey book because of that
Yeah.
same thing.
Exactly.
Maybe we can help to free some of our men who are godly, who aren't perfect, but who have self-control and exercise self-control. I think it'd be nice to be able to say, I'm not one of those men that they say it's every man's battle. You know what I'm saying?
Right. This episode is brought to you by Naturally Man.
Fellas, you tired of coming up short in the gym and in the bedroom?
Do you struggle with getting and staying fit no matter how hard you diet and work out?
Do you deal with body aches, low energy,
Low confidence in your abilities in the bedroom?
stress and anxiety in your relationship due to poor performance?
Well, Naturally Man may be your answer.
Listen, I've been using this supplement now as a pre-workout for the last several weeks, and I have noticed a marked difference in my performance in the gym, but also in the bedroom.
So have I.
I have more energy, my thoughts are clearer during the day, and at night I still have a little something left for my wife, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, and ladies, guess what? We can take it too.
Yeah, we can't have nothing, man. A couple of days after April saw my results in the gym, she started taking my supplement and getting great results too.
Yes, so order yours today at naturallyman.com.
And just for our chimes, use promo code CHIMES10 and you get 10% off.
Naturally Man, get your groove back today.
Yeah. Okay, so I do want to ask a question about the sex drives thing.
Yes.
This was another revelation to
yes,
us.
that's where we were going.
Big revelation to us was that we often teach that men have a higher sex drive than women.
Yes.
And your surveys found something very different about why it is that maybe women might not be as motivated to have sex with their husbands, and it may have nothing to do with sex drive.
Right.
So can you just talk about that?
Exactly.
Yes.
So we often hear this idea that men want sex and women don't. Okay, not
Yes,
true.
we do.
58% of men are the higher drive spouse, but 19% of women are, and then in 23% of marriages, it's roughly it's shared. Libido is shared, so it's
Okay.
not always the guys. Okay, and so we need to stop talking about this like it's always the men who have the higher sex drive. But then the question is, if you have a guy with the higher sex drive and a woman with a lower sex drive, which is what is normally thought is the case, if she doesn't want sex, what's the issue? And if you read most of our Christian marriage books, the issue is she is being selfish. She needs to stop. She needs to realize her duty. She needs to have more sex. Well, that's not what we found.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what we found, okay? I'm going to list 5 things. Are y'all ready? Here I go.
Yes.
My
Yes,
hand
let's
is
go.
on. Okay. When there is high marital satisfaction, when she feels emotionally close during sex, when she frequently reaches orgasm, when there is no sexual dysfunction, and when there is no porn use,
Wow.
frequency pretty much takes care of itself.
Wow.
That is deep.
So frequency is not the problem. Frequency is a symptom. So if she doesn't want sex, or if he doesn't want sex, instead of saying you are being selfish, we need to ask the question, why? Because our libidos are protective.
Yeah.
You know, if women feel emotionally unsafe in a relationship, their libidos are naturally going to get lower. And that's actually a God-given protective mechanism, because you don't want to get pregnant in a relationship you don't feel safe in. And so your libido is naturally going to be lower when you don't feel close to your spouse. Yes, all 5 are discussed in the book. We have a chapter on this, actually.
Yeah,
Exactly. On this specifically. And so we need to start thinking about frequency differently and talk about this differently.
Yeah.
Because if we could uncover why the libido is lower, that would be so great. The other thing is, and this is sort of an aside, it kind of is with the question, but there are 2 different kinds of libido. There's, and Emily Nagoski is the one who taught me about this with her book, Come As You Are, but there's spontaneous libido, which is like you see them and you're totally raring to go. It's like, take me now. And then there's more of the responsive libido, where I don't actually necessarily feel super sexy right now, but if we start kissing, if we start touching, then I'm going to be like, yeah, you know, this could be fun tonight, and I'll get into it.
Right.
So more men tend to be spontaneous and more women tend to be responsive, but there's a lot of crossover. So it isn't always like that. But just because someone is responsive does not mean they're not sexual. And often if someone has a spontaneous libido, you tend to think, well, my spouse just doesn't want me.
Wow.
Because they don't act the same way that I do. And that's not true. And so we need to stop labeling responsive people as not sexual and just realize, hey, you know, as long as they're enjoying sex, as long as they get through sex and they enjoy it and they have a great time, then they're sexual. It's a good thing. And as long as this is good in our marriage, then that's a good thing.
Let's stay with the responsive libido and spontaneous libido thing, because people are asking some things in the comments, right? So I would ask you this. Can you help out some of our male friends who may feel less male because they are responsive instead of reactive? No, spontaneous, excuse me. So in other words, if most men are spontaneous, and it's like, I just see you, I'm ready to go. And that's the stereotypical male thing. And I'm not that kind of guy. You know, maybe I feel bad about that somehow. Or I feel less male. I don't know. How do we make our men feel better about that? I don't know. If that's even the right question.
I think the key, and I would actually say the same thing to women who are more responsive. I don't think this is necessarily a gendered thing, and that's why I would love it if we could stop talking about it in terms of gender and just talk about it in terms of high drive, low drive, spontaneous, responsive, because the answer is actually the same, which is realize that a lot of your libido is in your head. Okay, so what we often do at the end of the day is we kind of say, okay, body, do you want sex tonight? And your body says nothing.
Right.
And so you figure I'm not in the mood.
Yeah.
And what we need to start doing is, instead of asking our body, we need to start telling our body. And we need to say, I've had a hard day.
Yeah.
And I
It's time.
deserve to feel amazing. And I'm not feeling that right now. But if we start, I'm going to get there, because I deserve this. My spouse deserves this. We're going to rock each other's worlds. Let's go. And like, give yourself a bit of a pep talk and just have confidence that if you jump in with the right attitude, your libido is going to follow. Because I think a lot of responsive people are waiting for the mood to strike. And we don't realize that we do have the power if we start doing the positive self-talk and we start saying, I'm just going to jump in. I want this. I don't feel like I want this, but I know that this is going to be amazing when I get there.
Yeah.
And just jump in, because especially your spouse needs you to initiate sometimes too. So I would just challenge people that are more responsive to do that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I wanted to.
It certainly, yes, it can be a hormone imbalance. There's all kinds of reasons why you could have a lower libido.
Yeah.
And if you have an abnormally low one, so if you never have sex dreams, for instance, that's a big one. If you never have a sex dream ever, then and you have a difficult time getting aroused, it's really a good idea to get your hormones checked, whether you're male or female. Yeah, because that's one of the biggest signs. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so just with what you're saying right now, it sounds like we need to be educated.
Yeah.
You know, we don't know. Just with even the wording that you use with the pain that women have, I had never heard of those things ever.
Right.
You know, I didn't even know that was a thing.
Right.
To have a name for it, you know what I mean? So, but I did want to ask you, and we're going to get a little bit more. You seem like you don't care if we ask you any kind of question.
I'll say anything. I'll talk about anything, personally.
But in reading your book, I want you to talk about the clitoris, because I think that is ignored.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
or misunderstood.
Or misunderstood.
Or maybe
unknown.
Not. We don't know.
Yeah. And so
I shouldn't say we. Maybe I should say.
Babe, stop.
Sorry. Anyway.
So could you talk about that? I know you talk about that in your book, and I think that is something I believe would be eye-opening for some men and even some women.
Okay, so clitoris, that is, and you can say clitoris, same, I say clitoris, but it's not that, pronunciations are
I
fine
actually say
way.
clitoris too. I don't know why I say clitoris. It just came out.
I think both are valid.
She was nervous to ask the question, so.
Yes. Yeah, both are valid. Okay, so the thing about it is that it has as many nerve endings as the penis.
Right.
On a much smaller scale. Okay. Although the clitoral roots, if you look at the clitoral roots, which extend up the front of the vaginal wall, then the clitoris is actually larger than the penis for many people. But regardless, okay. But major nerve endings. And that is where most women get the majority of their sexual pleasure from. So those 48% of women who almost always reach orgasm, the majority of them do not do so through intercourse alone. And a lot of them never orgasm through intercourse. So God could have put the clitoris up the vagina. Okay. He could have put it up the hoo-ha, so it was right there so he could get maximum stimulation during intercourse, but he didn't. He put it on the outside. And he also made women so that we would take longer to reach orgasm than men. And so why did he do that? And I think one of the reasons is because, hey, for sex to work well, men actually have to serve their wives.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Okay?
I was waiting on you to say that.
Men have to serve their wives. And that's the way our bodies were made. It's actually a biological imperative pretty much.
Yeah.
And so we need to get more used to this, that it isn't that intercourse alone is not sex. There needs to be a lot more. We need to have a much more expansive definition, because it can't just be about intercourse if she's going to really enjoy herself. And there are and for sex to really feel good, often she has to concentrate on her body. She has to pay attention to what her body is feeling and know, okay, I actually want him to touch here now, or I actually want him to do this, or go fast, or more to the left, whatever. Whereas he also needs to think about her, because if he thinks about him, it'll be over too fast. So it's like better if you're both focused on her. Yeah.
Wow.
So we got a couple of questions here. I wonder if we can take them. The first one, is your newsletter for women, or would men benefit from subscribing?
I often direct it at women, but I have I'm sure about 30% of my subscribers are men. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Especially since the book came out. Yeah.
Okay. Pierre Louis says, what do you say about fatigue? I never want to pressure my wife when she is tired, but I end up not knowing when to initiate. We have such a busy schedule.
That's it. That's probably the biggest problem so many couples have, honestly. Yeah. I'll say 3 quick things. Let me see if I can remember all 3. Number 1, go to bed at the same time. Huge deal. Okay, look, when I'm a Gen X. Okay, yeah. But when I was a kid, which was before the internet, everybody went to bed. All the adults went to bed at one of two times, either 10:20 or 11:15. 10:20 because that's when the local news was over, and 11:15 because that's when Johnny Carson's monologue ended on the Tonight Show.
Wow.
Because after that, there was nothing to do.
No one cares about
Right.
You know, and so everybody went to bed either after the local news or after Johnny Carson.
Wow.
Today, the internet and video games are everywhere, and so there's no specific bedtime.
Stay up all night.
Yeah.
So we need, and often someone will fall asleep on the couch, and then they'll come upstairs at 2 a.m. or whatever it might be. So as much as you can, get a bedtime. It can be, it can change your life. Okay. So, you know, even if you work shift work, you need to be up at different times, try to go to bed at the same time, just to cuddle, to talk, to pray, whatever it might be. And then even have sex, like more power to you.
Yeah.
The other thing is, if she is super tired, if she's way more exhausted than you are, then you're not doing enough.
Oh, wow.
That's it. You're not sharing the load. She's got too
Listen.
much. Yeah.
She's got too much mental load going on. If she's carrying all the mental load for like when we got to do the doctor's appointments and Susie's homework is the science fair project is due on Monday. We have to practice for the piano recital on Wednesday. We have to do
plus working outside the home.
Yeah. Like she's got too much stuff in her head. You need to take some of that on.
Wow.
And
now you said three
that's a
things.
big problem.
Was that
okay? Was that what was the third?
So go to bed at the same time.
Yes.
She's
and
doing
take some
too
of the
much.
mental load. Take some of the mental load.
Okay.
And then I think a big thing is just talk to her about it. Like just talk to her about it.
Communicate. Yeah.
And if you're so tired that there's no time for the marriage, then is this a temporary thing? Or is this a life thing? And if it's a life thing, that's probably not sustainable in the long term. So what can we do about it?
Yeah.
Okay, somebody else wants you to elaborate on sex dreams. I think the comment you made earlier about if you never dream about sex, you might have a hormonal imbalance.
Yeah, most people at some point will have a dream where they feel like they're just about ready to orgasm. You know, one little bit will get them over the edge or whatever. The dreams are much more likely to happen, interestingly, if you wake up like around 5:30 in the morning and then you go back to sleep. And then you wake up at 7, like it's in that little bit of time. That's also, it's I think they think it has something to do with, anyway, urine and you'll often, that's why men wake up with erections as well. That's can sometimes be bladder and anyway, but that's the time that sex dreams are most likely to happen is early in the morning. So, you know, most people have it now, not every night. I'm not saying you should be having it every night, but if you go, like, if you think I cannot remember having one ever, or, you know, maybe once when I was 15, that could be an issue. So if you have one like every couple of months, that's okay, you know, but yeah.
Does sex dream include daydreaming? Or
No,
it's just
that's-
when you're actually sleeping?
I'm actually talking about a dream.
Okay.
Like people who
Yes.
never, because a lot of people with very low libidos never really think about sex during the day. But if you also never think about sex when you're sleeping, then that's a sign. That's something doctors will often ask you about when it's hormonal. So yeah.
I know that we're coming down to the end.
Yes.
But I have to ask you this, and I hope you're okay with me asking you this. You did a live recently about a book that had something specific in it that I was floored about.
Wasn't it an article?
No, it was a book.
It was a book. Okay.
Right? Yeah,
I don't remember.
think it was a book.
Okay.
And
I came in and watched a little bit with it, but
yes,
I don't
and
remember.
I couldn't watch the whole thing, but it was, you were talking about you said something about this author encouraging women or wives to send naked pictures of themselves.
Yes.
Now, I know that was you did a whole live on just that. Right. So I just want you to give us a little taste of what you talked about, because I mean, we've heard a little bit about that kind of thing happening, but I didn't think that was something that was taught.
But and you're probably going to touch on it, but specifically how that feeds into porn culture. How that is the same message of porn culture, and why that's damaging to Christian relationship.
Yeah.
I'm really quite upset about this. Like, I'm livid, actually. But the book was Married Sex by Gary Thomas and Deborah Felita. And Gary Thomas is a really famous marriage author, and he and I were actually quite good friends for quite a few years. And I know him quite well. But they just released this book in October. So this is a new book. This isn't like, and he read The Great Sex Rescue before he wrote this. So he knew what our survey said.
I remember you saying.
He knew what our survey said, and he still said this.
Did he have surveys too? I mean, are a lot of these books?
He did, but it wasn't like ours. We did ours to academic standards, and anyway.
Got it.
So he presented these two stories, and he talked about one woman who was reluctant to send nude photos, but she didn't want to unnecessarily deny her husband. So as soon as you use that language, you don't want to deny your husband. You make it sound like he has a right to it. Right. Okay. So there's problem number one. So she asked a bunch of people. They said it wasn't biblically forbidden, and so she decided to, and he loved it. So they're giving the story of a woman who was reluctant, but she did it and he loved it. And then the next story was a woman who did it. And the reason she did it was so that neurologically his brain would be focused on her naked body instead of seeking out others.
Whoa.
So in other words, she sends naked photos so that he won't watch porn or think about other women. That is a coercive statement. And I don't think people necessarily understand what sexual coercion looks like, because we think that it is someone raping, like physically raping a woman. But coercion is any time you pressure someone to do something, because if they don't do it, something negative will happen to them.
Wow.
So if you have to send him nude photos so that he doesn't watch porn, that is coercive.
Yes.
Wow.
And this is what they were doing in this book. And then in a footnote, so it wasn't even in the text. In a footnote, they said, we acknowledge counselors strongly object to this, and we know there's issues with privacy around sending nude photos. And so we don't want anyone who feels uncomfortable to do this. But it was in a footnote. It was after they described a woman who was reluctant, but she did it. And now look at how hot she is and how happy her husband is. And here's this other woman who did this really hot photo shoot, and now her husband isn't watching porn. Like, that's just so wrong. And this is why I wrote The Great Sex Rescue, so that people will not be pressured like that anymore, because that's not of Christ. And I don't know why anyone ever thought that was of Christ. Focus on the Family featured that last week.
I was shocked. I really was.
Yeah. And so the thing that I like about what you're doing is that you're changing the focus entirely and helping us to see how the things that we mean to be helpful are actually sending the exact opposite message. They are damaging. And what you just described, I actually think is of the devil. I actually do. I think that porn culture objectifies women. It lowers them and makes them less than human. And this idea that I can coerce my wife to sending me nude photos of herself that she doesn't even want to do. I'm trying to figure out now why I would even want it if she doesn't want to do that.
Yes. And so, Primo, we're talking about coercion. I can never say that word.
Are you saying that if a wife wants to send her husband naked photos, that's a bad thing, is the question?
Yeah, let me answer this one. You know what? If you're both into it and go for it, accept.
That's consent. Neutral.
Yes. Let me give two big caveats. You cannot defeat porn by becoming porn.
No,
you
and that's
cannot.
the point.
That is the point.
And so when we're talking about nude photos, it has to be something where he does not have a pornified style of relating. He doesn't struggle with porn. This is not a part of his life or her life, because the nude photos could go either way.
Yes.
This is not about pornography. This is just about us having fun. So that's number one. And number two, you got to be seriously careful about those photos.
You do.
You don't want
to know how the cloud works?
Yeah, you don't want to die in a flaming car accident and have your mom go through your photos of your kids. And a lot of us, our kids know our phone's password. Like, you just gotta
it's
be
a whole
careful.
thing. You do.
And revenge porn is a thing. Like, I think a lot of women feel really pressured to do this because they're in unsafe relationships, and then 5 years later the relationship breaks up. I have known so many women who have fought for ownership of a cell phone in divorce court because that cell phone has pictures of her, and they've never been able to get that cell phone back. And now the pictures are everywhere. So you just need to be super careful. So I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying be careful.
Yeah.
I think the sentence you mentioned, this is the one. You cannot defeat porn by becoming porn. So if that's your motivation, it doesn't work.
No.
That will not happen.
Yep.
And if you're doing that in order to get something out of it that the other person is not, we talked about the mutual consent. If there's no mutual consent there,
Right.
that's a problem on its own.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
So some of our people are saying Sheila out here saving lives. Sheila, we thank you for coming
We
on.
do.
This is amazing. This
It
is,
is.
first of all, I literally was floored that you even came on the show.
I know that you said yes. We're like,
So
what?
thank you.
Yes, thank you for taking, because I know you're busy.
We know you have all kinds of stuff going on.
Yes, and so we really appreciate this.
We're expecting that your book sales will go up by at least 100. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of people say that they want to buy the
Yes,
book, and
yes.
what we believe is so great about it is, I think there is one way of thinking about this from the Christian community, and now we have a different way that feels like the biblical way.
Yes.
This feels like the
Yes.
way God intended it.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it makes sense why so many people aren't enjoying it and they call themselves Christians. I'm hoping this can help to
Yeah.
free them.
Yes, and I think it has to start with us teaching our children.
Oh, absolutely.
Like
Yeah.
you said, the
Yeah.
young, your young boys and young girls, you have
Yeah.
to teach them early on from the Bible how
Yeah.
it really should be and
I
how we
agree.
should be thinking. So thank you so
People are
much.
clapping and saying, thank you so much. This is
Awesome.
excellent. New fan, you know what
Yes,
I'm saying?
and I'm gonna take a quick selfie. Ready, babe?
Yes. I don't know if you got
Okay.
me in it, but
I got you.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Awesome.
So Sheila, I don't know when the next time is that you want to come on, but come on anytime.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Awesome. Yes. And hey, next year when COVID's over, the borders open, we're gonna get in our RV and we're gonna drive south again, so maybe we'll come by DC and we'll see
That
you.
sounds good.
Stop
Yes,
by.
please do.
Yes, definitely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
And we wish you all the best.
Bye.
And we wish the new book. By the way, can you tell us when the new book is coming out? Tell us the title again. Show it to us on the screen if you don't mind.
Yeah.
And tell us when that's coming out, because I think a lot of our audience would like to get that
Yes,
one too when it's
definitely.
available.
Yeah. Okay. So let me explain what the difference is. I
Okay.
don't know if I said this
Please.
already or not, but Ecclesiastes 3 says there's a time to scatter stones and a time
Yeah.
to gather stones together.
Yes.
And the great sex rescue was me scattering stones. It was me breaking down the walls, saying, "No, we got to destroy all this so that we can rebuild." And then these books are me rebuilding. So this is building sex from a healthy standpoint from the ground up. So we got the Good Guy's Guide to Great Sex. I don't have the Good Girl's Guide to show you, but there's a partner book, the Good Girl's Guide to Great Sex, and they're out on March 15th. So
March
you can
15th.
pre-order
Okay.
them. You can pre-order them on Amazon. Yep, less than a month now. So that's awesome.
That is awesome.
And where can we find you? If we
Yes,
want to
your
follow you on
website.
social or your website, can you give us that information?
Yes.
I should have asked you for that beforehand, but sorry.
Yeah, to lovehonorandvacuum.com is my website,
Oh, okay.
to lovehonorandvacuum.com. And then Sheila Gregroir is Instagram. And you can find me to Love Honor and Vacuum on Facebook. And
Okay.
yes, I'm kind of all over. So
Awesome.
Love that.
Thank you
you
very
so
much.
much.
You were awesome.
all right.
And,
All
Okay.
right.
We're looking forward to all the other books. You have 9 others, so we'll
Yes.
start reading those
Yeah.
too.
Exactly. We got to go down the list. We got to.
Good to meet you.
All right.
All
You
right.
too.
Bye-bye.
That was absolutely awesome.
It was.
Literally.
I am just like, yes, this is so good. I'm so happy that somebody is telling the truth with we always say, what is, what's your, what are the surveys? Who's saying this? There's
Right.
proof here.
Yeah.
Good quality work
But
that
now,
has been done.
but not only that, April, I
You know what
like
I'm
the fact
saying?
that she's naming names on other Christian books that we sometimes think are actually doing the right thing. And I think some of the messages in those books are okay, but she points out specifically what
Listen.
messages are damaging
Listen.
and why it's causing you as a Christian to
Yes.
not enjoy sex.
Let me tell you, when she was quoting some of the things in some of the books that I've read and that we have quoted,
Right.
right,
Right.
which like she said, everything in it isn't bad, and there's but when she quoted it and then explained why that was not the way we should be thinking, it was like, wow,
Right. Exactly.
never even thought of it in that way.
Exactly right.
And giving us the wording that we need. Like, we teach this,
Right.
but now we have some
Have a whole new way of framing it.
vocabulary
That's exactly right.
that
Yeah.
can go along with. So
Yeah.
I think the Lord has given her this.
Yeah. So it's
And,
absolutely awesome.
yeah.
I'm telling you now, even if after the show is over, you need to share this with people.
You do, guys. You need to share
You can go on
this.
our YouTube channel, if that's where you're finding us now, and share that link with people and tell them they need to hear this. This will help deconstruct all of the things that are going on in their minds right now that's messing them up sexually. You can send them, share the Facebook, and also, we're not really doing, you know, any kind of Team John or Team April tonight, but you can just do Team Sheila. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And you can use heart emojis. You can use thumbs up.
If you enjoyed this, heart.
Yeah.
Thumbs up.
Yeah.
Team Sheila.
Yeah.
You know.
Sheila Gregroir is awesome.
Because it was the information, guys. You got to get the book.
Yeah.
You got to get the book. We have underlined, highlighted,
dog-eared,
dog-eared, because there's so many good gems
Circled.
in here. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, so grab it today. It's gonna change your life. And maybe just get the audiobook and listen to it in the car.
Yeah.
Any way you decide to do it, I think is amazing. So
some Team Sheilas, go ahead
Yeah,
and
man.
give your thumbs up, hearts.
yeah, use those emojis. Use those emojis on your Facebook. Just hit it a bunch of times, like you know what I'm saying.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Love, 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 love. You know what I'm saying? Whatever you want to do.
Thanks, guys.
Hey
for
guys,
coming
thank
out.
you for joining us
Hey,
tonight.
you come out late every time.
Yeah.
Y'all are here. We love y'all so much. Chimes, y'all are just. We just love the chimes.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
Thank you for supporting us.
Thank you for supporting.
If this is your first time to our YouTube channel, you can subscribe.
Yeah.
And of course, you can also share this, like it.
Follow us on IG.
Yep.
You know, you want. You got the music going on right now.
That's right.
Never
I
mind.
can't do that, can I?
Yeah. It's okay. It's okay.
If I were to switch the music to this, I can go like that and just show you all of our. It's just John and April everywhere: YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. If you go to our Instagram account, you'll notice a lot of reels that we do. And lately, we've been doing a lot of great sex rescue reels that have been funny. You know what I'm saying?
I know.
So anyway, love you guys. We'll see y'all next week. We'll be right here, right?
Yeah,
we're not.
we'll be
We're not
here.
going nowhere. We'll actually be here next
We'll
week.
be here next week.
Yeah. All right, y'all.
All right, guys.
Peace.
Bye.